My name is Richard. Like many of you, I grew up hearing stories about World War II, but my grandfather, Master Sergeant William Bill Turner, never talked much about the war. He was a military policeman and MP stationed in Belgium in 1944. When I asked him if he shot any Nazis, he would just shake his head and say, "The scariest thing I saw over there didn't have a weapon. It didn't even have a face." When he passed away last year, I inherited this footlocker, and inside, I found this diary. It details an event that terrified his entire unit. It wasn't a battle, it was a landing. On a cold afternoon near Brussels, a massive B-17 Flying Fortress bomber descended from the clouds. It lowered its landing gear. It approached the runway perfectly. It touched down smoothly. The engines were running. The propellers were spinning. My grandfather was the first one to climb inside to help the crew. But when he got to the cockpit, there was nobody there. No pilot, no co-pilot, no bodies, no blood. The plane had flown itself. It had landed itself. And it was humming on the tarmac like a living beast, waiting for a command that never came. Today, on G.I.Stories, we are opening the family archives. We are going to investigate the true story of the Phantom Fortress, the ghost plane of 1944. Was it a miracle of engineering, a Nazi secret weapon, or something else? Let's read the entry. Before we get to the mystery, my grandfather's notes emphasize one thing. You have to respect the machine, the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. Grandpa wrote here, "It's an ugly beast on the ground, but a queen in the air." This plane was built to take a beating. It had 4 massive Wright Cyclone engines. It had a tail fin the size of a barn door. The B-17 was designed to be inherently stable. In aviation terms, this means if you let go of the controls, the plane wants to fly straight and level. It fights against crashing. But it wasn't a drone. In 1944, planes didn't land themselves. To land a 30-ton bomber required 2 strong men wrestling with the yoke, adjusting the throttles, dropping the flaps, and praying the tires didn't burst. So, how could one land without a soul on board? To understand that, we have to go back 3 hours before my grandfather saw it. We have to go to the skies over Germany, to a mission that went terribly wrong. The plane involved was a B-17G from the 91st Bomb Group. The pilot was Lieutenant Harold D. Boat. The target? The oil refineries at Merseburg, Germany. According to the mission reports I found online to cross-reference Grandpa's diary, Merseburg was a death trap. It was protected by hundreds of anti-aircraft guns. As they approached the target, the sky turned black. Bang! A direct hit. Shrapnel tore through the B-17. Engine number 2 caught fire. Engine number 3 lost oil pressure and started to shake the wing apart. The bomb bay doors were jammed open. The plane was bucking like a wild horse. It was losing altitude fast. LT Bolt was a good pilot. He tried to stabilize the aircraft. But then, a second shell hit the nose. It destroyed the electrical system. The plane went into a steep dive. DeBolt realized he couldn't hold it. The plane was going to crash. He had seconds to make a decision. He ordered the crew, "Bail out, bail out." One by one, the 10 crew members jumped into the freezing German air. The waist gunners went out the back. The navigator went out the nose hatch. Finally, only LT Bolt was left. He was standing on the flight deck. The plane was rolling to the left, diving toward the earth. Now, this is the crucial moment. Before jumping, Debo did something instinctual, something every pilot is trained to do. He didn't want the plane to spin uncontrollably and hit his men in their parachutes. So, he reached for the trim tabs. He adjusted the elevators to pull the nose up. He adjusted the ailerons to correct the roll. He set the throttles of the remaining working engines to a low cruise setting. He basically told the plane, "Fly straight while I get out." DeBoat grabbed his chute and jumped. As he floated down, he watched his bomber. He expected to see it explode in a field a few seconds later, but that's not what happened. As DeBoat watched in disbelief, the B-17 leveled out. The lighter weight combined with the trim settings created a perfect equilibrium. The Queen of the Skies decided she wasn't done flying yet. She turned west, toward the Allied lines. Alone. Can you imagine being that pilot watching your own plane fly away without you? But the story gets weirder. That plane flew for hours. It crossed the battle lines. It crossed into Belgium. It was being guided by nothing but physics and wind. If you love mysteries that are actually true, take a second to like this video. It helps me justify spending so much time in this dusty attic. Now, let's go to the ground, where my grandfather was waiting. Let's open the diary again. November 23, 1944, Kortenberg near Brussels. My grandfather's unit was stationed at a British anti-aircraft battery, protecting a captured airfield. It was a quiet afternoon. Low clouds. Suddenly, they heard the drone of engines. Grandpa writes, "We saw a fortress coming in low from the east. It looked beat up. One prop was feathered. The other was smoking. The soldiers grabbed their binoculars. They expected to see flares. They expected radio contact, but the plane was silent on the radio. The British AA gunners swiveled their guns. Was it a German trick? A Trojan horse? No, the markings were clearly American. The landing gear was down. It was lining up perfectly with a plowed field next to the runway. Grandpa watched, holding his breath. The pilot seemed to be a master. The approach was steady. The wheels touched the dirt. The plane bounced once, then settled. It rolled across the field, kicking up mud. It plowed through a hedge, clipped a wing on a tree, and finally ground to a halt, just yards from the anti-aircraft gun emplacement. The engines didn't stop. They kept chugging. This is the part that gave my grandfather nightmares. He and his squad ran to the plane. They thought the crew was wounded or dead. The engines were still running, making a deafening noise. Grandpa climbed up through the side hatch. He had his M1 carbine raised, ready for anything. Inside, it was eerie. The wind was whistling through the holes in the fuselage. He checked the waist gunner positions. Empty shell casings on the floor, but no men. He checked the radio room. Empty. He checked the ball turret. Empty. He shouted, "Hello, anyone here? American MP." Only the sound of the engines replied. He made his way to the cockpit. The door was swinging open. He expected to see the pilots slumped over the controls, dead. He looked in. The seats were empty. The throttles were set to cruise. The trim tabs were set perfectly. On the navigator's table, there was a map and a half-eaten chocolate bar. It looked like the crew had been raptured, like they just vanished into thin air instantly. Grandpa wrote, "I turned off the magnetos to kill the engines." The silence that followed was heavier than the noise. I felt like I was standing in a tomb. Within an hour, the plane was swarming with brass. British officers, American intelligence, they searched the plane. They found the parachutes were gone. This was the first clue that the crew had bailed out. But where and how did the plane fly from Germany to Belgium over 300 miles and land itself? The rumors started flying. Some soldiers said it was a Nazi remote control plane. Others whispered about gremlins. My grandfather just thought it was a ghost ship, the Marie Celeste of the sky. Years later, aviation historians analyzed the event. It wasn't ghosts. It was physics. The B-17 is a stable platform. When Daybolt trimmed the aircraft, he set it for a slow descent. As the plane burned off fuel, it got lighter. The descent became a glide. When it reached the ground, a phenomenon called ground effect likely happened. As the wings get close to the earth, the air cushion underneath them increases lift. This caused the plane to flare slightly just before touching down, softening the landing. The landing gear, which D-boat hadn't retracted, acted as shock absorbers. It was a 1 in a billion mathematical probability. But it happened, and the crew, they all survived. They were captured by the Germans initially, or rescued by the resistance, but they all came home. When they were told their plane had landed safely in Belgium without them, LTD Bolt reportedly said, "I always knew she was a good ship. I guess she didn't need me after all." My grandfather kept a piece of metal from that plane, a small jagged piece of aluminum skin. He kept it to remind himself that in war, strange things happen. We build machines to destroy, but sometimes, the machines seem to have a will of their own. Sometimes, they just want to come home. What do you think? Was it just aerodynamics? Or was there a phantom pilot guiding that bird home? Let me know in the comments. I have a whole trunk full of Grandpa's files here. Next video, I am going to read you the story of a pilot who flew under the Eiffel Tower to chase a Nazi. You don't want to miss that one. Subscribe to G.I. Stories to help me decode the past. This is Richard, signing off.